Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Oilersnation After Dark. Early edition. Connor Halley with you here. Aaron Bordato, my producer, on the other side. We've also got Zach Laing of Oilersnation and DFO, who will join us in a couple of minutes here. But, of course, the Edmonton Oilers, losers. 6-2 out in Montreal, their last game before the Super Bowl. I think they might want to drown their sorrows and forget about this one and hopefully watch a good game later on today. Of course, we're going to get to the good, the bad, the oily in a couple minutes here. Hello if you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we can talk our way through this one. A little bit of a group counseling session. The Oilers, not a good performance today. If you are on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and keep those comments coming. We'll check in there in a second. Facebook as well. Let us know what you think about that game. Overall, not a great performance. Like I said, we will get to the good, the bad, the oily, brought to you by Cornerstone Insurance. But first, a quick recap of what happened. If you saw the game, you know it was bad and got worse pretty quick for the Oil. The first period, Alex Belzile gets his first goal of his NHL career. That made it 1-0 after 20 minutes. Early on in the second, Jordan Harris would get his second goal of the season. Josh Anderson would score on the power play, and all of a sudden the Oilers were down 3-0. A little bit of life, though. Leon Draisaitl gets his 30th goal to make it a 3-1 game. Great effort by Zach Hyman taking the puck to the net. Leon Draisaitl gets a tap in. That's exactly what he needed to hopefully get things going when they next play on Wednesday and for the rest of the remainder of the season. Evander Kane would score to make it a 3-2 game. That came after the Oilers could not convert on a 5-on-3 power play opportunity. But unfortunately, Raphael Harvey-Pinard would score his sixth goal in the power play with a minute 19 left in the second period. Once again, made it a 2-goal game, and the Montreal Canadiens would wrap it up from there. Jordan Harris and Christian Dvorak scoring in the third period. Montreal wins 6-2. And worse news for the Edmonton Oilers right now, Seattle currently leads 4-2 in their game, and the Vegas Golden Knights up 1-0 over the Ducks in there. So the Pacific Division, as we expected, it's going to be a tight race down the stretch. Right now, though, let's get to the good, the bad, the oily, brought to you by Cornerstone Insurance. And it's going to be a little bit dark here for the good, the bad, the oily, brought to you by Cornerstone Insurance Brokers, Edmonton's premier boutique insurance brokers with over 90 years of success and still growing. Visit cornerstoneins.ca/nation to get an online tenant or condo insurance quote in just a few minutes and use discount code NATION for an exclusive rate. Find out why Cornerstone Insurance Brokers is ranked amongst the best in Alberta. And for the good, the bad, the oily, we'll bring in Zach Laing of Oilersnation and Daily Faceoff. Zach, good afternoon. How you doing?
Connor, you know what? I am doing all right. I got to watch some Oilers hockey. It is Super Bowl Sunday. Things could be a lot worse.
Big picture, things are pretty good. But for the good, the bad, the oily, I said it, I went pretty dark here. It's pretty negative today. And the good news for the good would be that the game's over. And now we can turn our attention to maybe the Super Bowl. Maybe you got to do some errands. Maybe it's a nap. But that was just one where I think the Edmonton Oilers, I don't know if they were looking past the Montreal team that was down, 10 starters, lost one of their top defensemen after a fight with Vinny Desharnais, but just not a good effort overall, Zach.
No, it wasn't. It was a rough game. A lot of poor performances out there. Stuart Skinner hung out to dry multiple times. He didn't look very sharp. There really isn't a whole lot of good that you can draw out of this game. I suppose if you want to try and be an optimist, you can sit there and say that the Oilers responded well in the second period, I thought. Evander Kane starts that scrum with Arbor Jacki, and then, Big Vinny D comes down and drops the mitts, and the Oilers were able to kind of get some momentum out of it. But it kind of felt almost like it was a little bit too little too late, right? They were down 3-0 at the time already, and yeah, you scored 2, but then you give up 3 more. Disappointing game to say the least in a vacuum.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, we could have given a little props for that little comeback there, scoring 2 goals, but nah, incomplete. They didn't finish it off, so couldn't give them anything in this one. The bad, maybe I'm just being a negative Nelly here, but for the bad, I just had everything. I don't feel like saying there's one thing that stuck out over anything else. For the Oilers, it just wasn't a good enough effort. Now, I'll say credit to Montreal. They played a good game. They did what they had to do. I thought they were physical on the Oilers stars and, tried to take away as much as they could. They got a good goaltending performance as well. But for the Oilers, nothing stood out to me as good. So everything else was just bad.
Yeah, again, there's not really a whole lot that you can like out of that game. Like I said, a lot of poor performances. It was just all around a stinker, right? I mean, the Oilers were outshot 7-0 before the Habs got their first goal of the game, and the Oilers really struggled to kind of muster anything back after that. That first period was really, really ugly, and it set the tone for this team. Like we've seen it time and time again. Like if the Oilers don't come out and have a good 3 or 4, 5 minutes to start the game, it seems like they can never recover until maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes of the game. That's something we saw again here tonight. Another slow start, sort of like they did against Philly last week. And you know what? This is how it ends up being sometimes, right? You're not going to win them all, of course, but you'd like to see a better performance overall, especially on a day like a Super Bowl Sunday where everybody should be excited to get home and watch the big game and spend some time with their friends and family. But what can you do?
I'm just going to add this one in here. Tristan on YouTube says, dude, I hate to rag at the end, but I had a bet on the shot prop 63.5 and missed by 2 because for 4 minutes they put 2 pucks on goal. So Tristan, I'm going to lump that into the bad. Hopefully that's with Betway 19 plus. Do so responsibly, but you can have some fun on Betway. Hopefully you took the over because I think that would have been like the only way you get some positives out of this one. And for the Oily, Zach, I always wonder if every fan base feels this way, but the Oilers especially. There's always the joke about slump buster, or if someone hasn't scored a long time, he's going to score. Well, today it was Alex Belzile. He scores his first ever NHL goal, 31 years old. His journey to the NHL is crazy. East Coast, AHL, all over the place. He's played in 7 games this year against the Oilers. Of course, he gets his first ever career goal.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice one too. Credit to him. That shot was able to find its way into the net. Such a great moment to see. It does really feel like the Oilers really struggle to or allow themselves, I suppose, to be slump busters all the time to different players and teams whenever they need to. Especially the former Oilers thing. That's the one that always confuses me a little bit. The former Oilers always have good games against the Oilers. But you know what? You look at that Habs lineup, right? They got a number of guys that are out of the lineup. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They got 6 guys who are regular bodies in their lineup that aren't playing. And you take a look at the list of players that drew in, as you said to me before we kind of started here, when players in the 50s, 60s, or 40s, 50s, and 60s start scoring, you got some problems, right? But that's exactly what it was. And I think it was Louis DeBrusque who made the comment on the broadcast, look, these are all guys who are trying to make a name for themselves, right? So it doesn't surprise me to see a lot of these players coming out to have strong games. Raphael Harvey-Pinard, he was a goal scorer. As you mentioned, Belzile, he scored as well too, right? Who else was there? It felt like there was somebody else. Oh, Jordan Harris, a 2-goal performance from him, his second and third goals of the year. Very fitting, to say the least. A guy like Christian Dvorak too hasn't scored a lot of goals this year. Finds the back of the net with that shorthanded tally. So it's a weird phenomenon, to say the least.
Yeah, I was joking. When guys with numbers 60, 63, 54 are scoring goals on you, I mean, they're typically not usually those counted on goal scorers. I was explaining to my mom, you had Lemieux, you had Nash, I guess Ennis, some guys like the 60s, but number 60, that's definitely a tough one for the Edmonton Oilers. Today, we've got here on Facebook, Star says, why isn't Woodcroft playing our hot goalie? He keeps going back and forth, and Skinner didn't play well. Hard for me to blame Skinner in this one. A couple power play goals. That shorty at the end, I mean, just no chance. And back-to-back games, very rarely are you going to see a coach play the same goalie in 2 straight games or 2 straight nights. So, yeah, I'm not going to blame them on that one.
I mean, it happened earlier in the year, and I think it was Stuart Skinner. No, it was Jack Campbell who had to play back-to-back nights.
Yeah.
But that's because Stuart Skinner was sick, right? In instances like that, we'll see the back-to-backs for some goaltenders. But yeah, it's not a very common move.
And we kind of use it a lot here for these slow starts for the bad. It's happened a couple of times here on Oilersnation After Dark. Today it took 10 minutes to get the first shot on a power play. Obviously, in hindsight, chance. It looks like they probably could have scored on that one. Didn't work out for them, but another slow start. Heather says, exactly, not Skinner's fault. That's on Facebook. Well, let's hop over to YouTube, Zach. The chat room, as always, going pretty crazy here. Hello, Darian, Owen, Dr. Gonzo. We've got Twisted, Chris, Larissa. So simply embarrassing. I thought that at a couple points throughout the game. Scotteroni says, is Kirby Doc available? I don't think so. Dr. Gonzo, though, how about Vinny versus Jack-Eye was nice to see. Otherwise, pretty ugly. Yeah, the man they call Wi-Fi. That was a good little tilt there, and I liked Vinny Darnay stepping up and going for that. Evander Kane trying to provide a spark there as well, throwing some punches. I think Josh Anderson got involved. We were talking beforehand, and Aaron had asked me, is there any clips we should grab? And that was literally the only thing that came to mind. I mean, Draisaitl's 30th was okay. Great effort by Hyman. But other than that, I mean, the scrum, and I think we have it. Here we go. Man, Aaron, star producer here. This was like the highlight of the game for me, Zach. It was just nice to see a fight at least, and Desharnais, the massive man that he is, throw a couple. It was a good little tilt there.
Yeah, it was. It was a great little scrap. It felt like it's kind of been brewing for a little while here from Desharnais, right? You've seen him mixing it up in some of the scrums. You look at that Detroit game last week, there was, a couple of those guys that were like, he was grabbing like 2 or 3 guys at one time, right? A little chippy yesterday morning against Ottawa. It felt like it was just a matter of time before we saw him kind of drop the mitts, and he did so in front of his friends and family, right? Of course, he's a Quebec native, so I thought that was great to see. For me as well, I thought that was kind of the highlight of the game. You even look at a guy like Evander Kane, right? Like when the Oilers brought him in, there was so much talk about Evander Kane being one of those guys who kind of drags players into games and drags them into the fight. And he quite literally did that today. And we got to see the way that it kind of changed the tempo that the Oilers played with. Now, granted, they couldn't figure out a way to solve Jake Allen, and they couldn't figure out how the hell to play defense today. But there was some change in the pace of play, and the Oilers really did turn it on in the second half of that game. Of course, again, too little, too late. But, those are kind of the things that you like to see from a guy like Evander Kane, and then same thing from Desharnais, right? I mean, this is a guy I think that has firmly earned a spot on this roster with the way that he's played. And now, with so much talk about, trading for a defenseman possibly, the Oilers really have 7 defensemen that are playing, good hockey or decent enough hockey to deserve a spot in the lineup every night. It's going to make it really interesting these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, as pointed out in the chat here, Jack-Eye hurt the hand on Vinny's head here, left the game. As you were speaking, my lights fell and my flag fell. So a microcosm of the Oilers game today. Nothing's going well. I was battling with that flag for about 20 minutes before the show. It just would not stand. So that's okay. Down it goes. So that's fine. Some stranger says Vinny broke a hab. Tyson. Jack-Eye messed up his punching hand. Vinny is hard AF. And Cato says, would have been nice to get the win for Vinny in his hometown. Maybe that's just where he's not going to win. Maybe everywhere else he will win, but not in his hometown. And they'll bounce back on Wednesday.
That makes sense. I think the Oilers will win every game the rest of the way. That's what I think is going to happen.
Quaddy, sorry. So many bad habits creeping in. The point streak was deceiving. There was a couple tough games in that point streak. Jason Strudwick said on the Gregor show actually on Friday that I think he said the Oilers would probably lose one of these games. There was aspects of the Oilers game that he didn't like and thought this might happen. And I didn't think he was necessarily wrong on that one. I didn't think it'd be this game and in that fashion. Like there was just, they looked like a team that played two games in 2 days with travel included. Like the fatigue was there. Just the energy seemed low from the start. Did you see that?
Oh, absolutely. Like right off the opening face-off, the Oilers felt very sluggish. Montreal played yesterday too, so there was really no excuse for the Oilers to kind of turn in such a lazy, pathetic performance the way that they did. It's funny that Struddy mentioned that because I was actually DMing with somebody who covers the Oilers last night, and they said the same thing to me. They're like, it feels like the Oilers are going to lose one of these games coming up here. And I thought that they would be able to handle Montreal here and, Detroit on Wednesday, and then, maybe drop the 2 against the Rangers and the Avalanche that are sort of coming up here. Didn't quite expect such a performance like this, but you know what? At the end of the day, like this is an Oilers team that's really still playing good hockey. I tweeted about it after the game. This is the first time in a calendar month, the Oilers have lost a game in regulation. They had an 11-game point streak. They went 9-0-2, securing 20 standings points, outscoring their opponents 52-26. Like that's an incredible run of hockey. Opponents be damned. The Oilers played some really good games through this stretch here. In the grand scheme of things, I'm not overly concerned about this game. Like, would you like to have seen them put in a better performance? Of course. But at the end of the day, these kind of games they're going to happen throughout the season. It's an 82-game season, right? There's teams that put up every team puts up stinkers now and then, right? Was it frustrating? Was it a crappy way to start off a Sunday? Yes, absolutely. But at the end of the day, the Oilers have to turn the page quickly because they're going to have a tough game against Detroit coming up here on Wednesday. Like, this is going to be a really tough game for them. A little 4-game road trip here. I thought the Oilers played decent enough throughout it. They're going to get Monday off, back practice on Tuesday. Then it's a game day on Wednesday, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens because we look at how chippy that game was last week. I wouldn't be surprised to see any of that carry over.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm totally in agreement with you there, and that might be the best thing for this group, right? Getting into a emotional game against Detroit where some of that stuff does carry over. I don't try to put too much focus on one game. If you have one bad game, so like you said, it's an 82-game season. That's going to happen. You just don't let it snowball. And just like one good game, you give one good game. If you lose the next 3, who cares, right? I look at it in kind of portions and maybe 4 or 5, 6 games. How's the team playing? And if, the Oilers are to go on a run here and win the next 3, then this one doesn't seem quite as important. But if they come out on Wednesday and give a similar effort, which I don't expect them to, I expect them to bounce back, then it's a little bit less concerning. Some stranger says, Connor, you look like you just woke up. Zach, these early games are tough for me. I typically, Monday to Friday, don't work till 2. So when I have to get up and then go into the station for pregame shows at, we start at 9, I'm there at 8. Like, I am fading. So we're trying to get through this one today. And there's another couple games this early, a bit of a struggle. We're going to bring up the goaltending here, and pointed out to us by our producer extraordinaire, Aaron Bordato, saying that in the chat, we got some people mentioning Stuart Skinner. I don't blame this one on him. 6 goals against doesn't help your GAA, your save percentage in this one. Obviously, right now or today he was 800, not great, but 2 power play. That shorty, like we mentioned, he just was left hanging. Any concern in his game, not just today, but maybe the last week or so?
I think maybe in a general sense, yeah. I can't really delve into like super specifics here about it, but it does feel like his game has sort of regressed a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Brian Swain, actually, of the Edmonton Elks, tweeted out today, since January 1st, in the 9 games started by Jack Campbell, the Oilers have 9 wins. In the 7 games started by Stuart Skinner, the Oilers have 1 win. Now, say what you will about that. I mean, I don't necessarily think Stuart Skinner is playing bad hockey at all, but I do think there's probably a little bit of regression in his game, and that's okay. That's going to happen throughout the course of a season, right? Like, we look back at the way that Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen were, and in terms of being streaky goaltenders, one always was able to find a way to lift the other up when their game was down and vice versa. And I think that's exactly what's kind of happened here. Like, Stuart Skinner carried a huge load through the first half of this season. It was a massive performance from him, enough to get him voted into an All-Star game, right? To see Jack Campbell coming in and playing as well as he is, I think is really reassuring for the big picture. And Skinner will find his game. Again, the same sort of a thing. I'm not overly concerned with a bad performance or two, but like you mentioned, hopefully it doesn't snowball into anything worse.
Yeah, and I feel like, you'd have to put in there Stuart Skinner is still extremely young, 24 years old. Going back and just looking, the most games he's ever played in a single NHL season, 43 or 47, split between the East Coast and the AHL back in 2018, 2019. He's at 31 this year, I believe, or 30 starts. So I don't know if fatigue becomes a factor, maybe a little bit of rust because he hasn't played quite as much as he had before. So I guess if you want to be critical of him as of late, sure, there could be some questions asked, but for today, I don't necessarily put that one on him. When your team scores only 2 goals against a team like Montreal with the roster concerns that they have right now, and then, kind of leave him hanging at certain points, I don't put this one on him, but I get that there might be some concern from other people. And like you said, good to have Jack Campbell, who has elevated his game as of late and is playing a lot better. Corey says Skinner was garbage. We've got Jazz saying, one thing to lose the game fair and square, but don't let the team embarrass you in the process. Yeah, that's fair. Real Deal Prime, who was in net? 6 goals to Montreal. My goodness. Yeah. Cato, caffeine, man's true best friend. Am I right? Yeah, caffeine definitely gets us through quite a few of those. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the chat here, Zach, people quick to point out that the numbers would say that Skinner's game has gone down, and maybe with less starts, maybe he finds his track again. But I guess the good news is, Jack, you got Jack Campbell, you paid him to be your number one, and it looks like he's kind of found that form. Thank God.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, that's what the Oilers paid him to do. Right. Like, we've known this about Jack Campbell too. Like, we've known in the past that he's a streaky goaltender. He doesn't really have a massive resume in any sense of the term as a starter in the NHL. And when you look back to his time in Toronto, you ask anybody out there, and Campbell was a very streaky goaltender at best. Right. So, he's clearly on a bit of a burner right now, and wouldn't surprise me to see him fizzle out a little bit in a couple of weeks, and then Stuart Skinner heat back up and take the reins over in net, and maybe he fizzles out towards the end of the year, and Campbell gets hot for a playoff run, or who knows exactly how it's going to break down. But I'm pretty content right now with where the Oilers' goaltending situation is sitting, and that's probably one of the first times that been able to say that for a very, very long time here. The Oilers have had some real difficulties in net over the last number of years, last decade or so. And it feels like we have the most stable tandem that we've maybe had in a very long time.
JCVL management. I don't feel bad for Skinner. Soft goals. All-star goalies are supposed to steal games. This all-star game, I don't know.
I mean, how many games has he stolen for the Oilers in the first half of the year, right, Connor? I mean, really, Skinner stood on his head multiple times and won games that the Oilers did not deserve. So I think it's a little short-sighted to kind of lay the blame of this one at Stuart Skinner's feet, because the team in front of him played horrible.
Yeah, and I mean, the All-Star process right now is not the best format, in my opinion. So there's a lot of guys who are All-Stars, so I don't know how deserving they are. Stuart Skinner in this situation playing in in the Pacific, I feel like voting him in made sense, but I don't know. With the new All-Star format, there's certain guys who I'm like, yeah, they're an All-Star, but that doesn't mean you're an elite player. Thank you for all the birthday wishes. You're all too kind.
Hey, happy birthday, Connor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll be going to my parents' house to watch the Super Bowl later on and relax and enjoy it. Now, here's one. This is, I think, is a fair one because I got to find it. But the name Evan Bouchard was brought up. And notice he got a little more time on the power play one there. What did you make of Evan Bouchard's play today, Zach?
Yeah, I thought he had a tough game. I mean, in one sense of the term, I thought he had a tough game. You look at the power play goal or the shorthanded goal, he got just totally outworked there, right? But in the same breath, Evan Bouchard had 2 assists today. He had assists on both of the Oilers' goals, which is good to see because Bouchard's a guy who hasn't scored a whole lot as of late. He hasn't really done a whole lot offensively. I hate to single guys out in a game like this. I really do, right? Because I think if you look up and down the lineup, I don't think anybody had a really great day. Like McDavid was firing on all cylinders, but he always is. Draisaitl, he had a lazy play on that one goal against as well too. So I have a real difficult time singling guys out in games like this.
Yeah, and I mean I think that's fair. I mean Bouchard, Quincy T. Rabbits has had a horrible game. Trade him, LOL. You can't trade him after a bad game, Quincy. The trade value. Remember, it's going to go down. But we'll see what happens with that one. I know Jacob Chikrin being a scratch last night had everybody freaking out that maybe a trade would be happening. Maybe the Oilers, maybe the Kings. Yeah, you're right, Zach. I mean, it is tough. He had a rough game, and I guess similar to what I said about the team's overall play. If that continues and keeps happening, then I feel like he can kind of make a bigger deal of it. If he bounces back with a strong performance, then we'll see. But there's going to be ups and downs. He's still a relatively young defenseman, kind of finding his groove in the NHL. Just checking here, we do have a final now. Seattle defeats Philly. So going to the standings now. Assuming it's updated, but it probably isn't. The Edmonton Oilers and Seattle Kraken now tied. My internet sucks, Zach. I apologize. Tied with 65 points, but the Oilers do have a game in hand. So the Oilers sitting in third in the Pacific, Kraken second, Vegas first, and Vegas looks to take I guess it'll be a 3-point jump over the Oilers with a win today. They currently lead 1-0. Man, this division, it's going to be fun. I started the year 100% had the Oilers winning the division. I still think there is a good opportunity for that. I thought Vegas might have some issues with the goaltending with the Kraken. We keep saying they're going to fall off, but they're hanging around midway through February.
Well, you know what? We talked about this on one of these After Darks a while back, Connor. Like, I think Seattle's a legit team. I really do. There's some question marks there for sure. I don't think their goaltending is going to be strong enough to hold them through, maybe more than a round of playoff hockey. They definitely have some inefficiencies, throughout their roster, but they're a really, really tight defensive team. And they've got some guys now that can put up some offense. Jaden Schwartz just came back from injury. He had 2 goals today. A big performance from him, right? Matty Beniers, Jordan Eberle, Jared McCann, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Andre Burakovsky when he's healthy. There's some guys that can really produce offense there. Are they the elite talents of the NHL? No, definitely not. But, when you pile up 8 secondary scorers into a top 6 or a top 9, you're still able to get some offensive contributions on a regular basis there. So, like I said, I don't think they got the dogs to be able to get them through maybe a round of playoffs right now. But they're a team that's going to hang around all season here the rest of the way. I go back to this last, 11-game run that the Oilers have had here. Like, you take a look, they got 65 standing points. They firmly entrenched themselves in this race in the Pacific Division in an insanely tight wild card race right now too. Like, think if the Oilers went had like a 600 points percentage, through this last stretch of time here. Like, all of a sudden they'd be sitting where the Calgary Flames are, with 60 points on the outside kind of looking in. And granted, there's a lot that can change in the next couple of weeks here and couple of months as we kind of go towards the end of the season. But man, the Oilers really, really got themselves in a good position over this last month. And I don't think that should be overlooked in any sense of the term.
It was brought up on the YouTube chat. Sorry, I don't have it up right now, but the Oilers power play as of late. And I guess, Draisaitl's goal today technically was on the power play. Went 1 for 5 against the Sens. It was Nuge at the end of the game with the power play goal. So the game was kind of out of hand. If you go to the game against the Philadelphia Flyers where they lost 2-1 in a shootout, no power plays had there. So didn't really get a chance to find their groove in that one. And then you go back to Tuesday, the Oilers power play was 1 for 4, and it was Nugent Hopkins on the power play. I was a little frustrated watching the Oilers power play today, especially on the 5-on-3. It felt like they were at times trying to be a little too cute, dusting the puck off a little bit too much. What have you thought of the power play as of late? Obviously on the season, fantastic, but it seems like they are slowing down a little bit.
Yeah, again, it feels like they've hit a bit of a rough streak here, a little bit of a rough patch. I did notice that Evan Bouchard was getting some time on the power play, as well as some of the big guys. So, maybe they were all feeling a little different having Evan Bouchard out there rather than Tyson Barrie or something of the ilk. I think in a game like this where you're chasing the game, sometimes these players try and do a little bit too much. I think the power play is a great example of that, right? You just look at the fact that they were trying to dust those pucks off when they really should be just getting those pucks on net quickly and trying to produce offense that way. Sometimes they'll try and be a little bit too pretty. That's something that's kind of plagued this team in the past a little bit. But, hey, you know what? Again, in a microcosm, in a vacuum, 1, 2, 3 games here, where they're struggling a little bit, not overly surprising, not overly concerning either at this point.
Yeah, I mean, definitely noticed Bouchard out there on the power play. He actually, amongst defensemen, had the most, 5 minutes, 42 seconds. Tyson Barrie got out there for 4.5, and then Darnell Nurse out there for 2 for the Oilers. It was the usual suspects, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nuge, Hyman, all playing around 8 minutes on the power play. So they had their opportunities in this game. I mean, the refs were calling them, obviously giving them the 5-on-3 there with the hook on McDavid. Just couldn't find a way to get it done. What did we should give a little credit to the other side. What did you make of Jake Allen today? Because it looked like he was pretty locked in this one.
Electric. He seemed to have a great performance. It feels like he did this to us earlier in the year too, where he had a really great game and kind of shut the Oilers down. Good for him, man. He's a guy who's been around for a long time, and it's tough to be a goaltender for a team like the Canadiens right now, who bleed defensively so much and hang him out to dry. But man, he really turned it on with a nice performance. And you look at the score and it shows, right?
The last time these two teams met, Oilers victorious 5-3 in that one. So the Oilers did get the best of him in that night, but 5-3 in that one. Let's hop over back to the old YouTube chat here. 54 of you in there. Hit that like button. We got to get everyone to hit the like button. It's not that hard. I can do it from my phone. Zach, I'm sure you could probably do it quite easily. So there's no reason we shouldn't have 54 likes right now. We're only at 15. Math tells me that's under 30%.
I think so.
Well under. Make sure you hit that like button on the old YouTube chat. Some stranger says even PK was horrendous today. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't too much good. Cato says, is it me or is Connor going back to a first pass mentality lately? I mean, there was a few opportunities I thought on the power play where the shot didn't even seem to cross his mind. It looked like he was trying to find kind of that teammate wide open for a tap in. I think he's extremely dangerous when he decides to shoot the puck and look for the shot first, but I can see it. I don't know for sure, but I can see why you would see that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, it comes back to, some guys just trying to do a little bit too much. And that's something that Connor McDavid, as incredible as he is, sort of struggles with sometimes, right? Is sometimes he does try and do a little bit too much with the puck on his stick and without it too. And, sometimes the simplest play is just taking a shot on net instead of trying to find, that stretch seam pass or that guy on the back door or something like that. Because, we've seen how many goals the Oilers have scored in front of the net this year in those sort of chaos situations. Look exactly what happened on Leon Draisaitl's goal, right? So it's the same thing with whose goal was it yesterday where Anton Forsberg got hurt? I can't remember. Same sort of a thing. Unfortunately, the outcome for Anton Forsberg there was a double MCL tear, which is absolutely wild to hear. But you know what? You got to get those pucks on net, and it's super cliche, but it's cliche for a reason.
Yeah, that was the newest goal at the end, the power play goal they had where Forsberg's laying there, torn MCLs, nothing he can do. And I guess when the stretcher came out, I kind of thought, what happened? This has to be something major. And Zach Hyman talked about it, said he could kind of saw the look in his eyes, like something's wrong. So 2 MCLs, that's certainly a tough one. Ricky says, Soup going forward, Stu is the backup. That's how this is setting up. And I think that would have been kind of the plan. Ken Holland said at the start of the year, there was that kind of envisioning 50-30 type thing. Skinner already at 30, so maybe you're starting to see Jack Campbell kind of handle the reins here. Quincy says teams with nothing to lose are dangerous. 100%. Down 10 regulars. You knew the Montreal Canadiens have a lot of players on their team that are fighting for, maybe not even a roster spot next year, but with other teams, right? You just want to show that you can play capably, and they did so today. The effort from the Montreal Canadiens was far superior than the Edmonton Oilers. Hopping back onto YouTube, Kleem was missed. Any update on Kleem? No. Stuart, Jay Woodcroft said before the game when he was asked about it, we'll see who comes out for warm-ups. And I've kind of said before, this guy's a football coach coaching hockey. He keeps it very tight to the chest. He's not going to say anything. We talked about it yesterday on Oilersnation After Dark as well, that, you're probably not going to hear much about it until Tuesday, Wednesday, because there's no reason to. I saw some people already speculating that the LTIR could come at an opportune time. With that, he'd be out 10 games. So we'll see. But left the game. He's a tough character. To see him leave the game like he did last afternoon, yesterday.
Yeah.
Wasn't a good sight, Zach.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was a tough one, right? It was an awkward play. Kind of goes on the board hard. You can't help but think, a shoulder immediately, right? So, hopefully it's nothing too serious for him. And, he's able to draw back in the lineup here pretty soon. But, yeah, we won't hear anything from him till Tuesday.
Cyril, man, I butcher so many names. I get in my own head here. Cyril says, how many points do you project to make the top 3? I would assume that's in the Pacific. Well, I don't know, Zach. I mean, what do you think? We're at game 54 now. Vegas, assuming they win today, will be at 54 games played and 68 points. Assuming they win, sorry. So, I mean,
it's going to be tight. I mean, you take a look at it, and typically the cutoff line usually for the playoffs is what is it, around 95 points, that sort of a thing. I'm just trying to bring up some projections here really quickly, and I cannot seem to find. I'm looking for it. Yeah, there we go. So it appears the cutoff line for the playoffs in the Pacific, according to hockeyviz.com, is sitting at 93.7 points right now. The Vegas Golden Knights are projected with 99 points. The Oilers are projected with 98 coming into today. So it looks like it's going to be right around that 100-point mark for those top 3 spots in the division. And, the Oilers are tracking right now, at the very least, to be right in the mix there.
Some stranger says Cleam, it doesn't open much cap space. That is true. Darian says these players need to play like they all could lose their spot at any time. I agree. That'd be nice. These games are the most frustrating for me because there's some things you can't control, right? Sometimes the puck's not going to go your way. Things just won't happen. But you can control your effort level. You can do things to try to make it work out. And it didn't really seem like it was going on today. One thing, you can control, hypothetically. Yaremchuk brought it up yesterday. If you want to go on the nation vacation to Toronto, I mean, that could be a lot of fun. You can have a classy experience up in a box suite, Oilers-Leafs game, a couple nights out in Toronto, and AMA Travel is the way to do that. nationgear.com. We go there. I think there might be a couple open spots. Yaremchuk said it yesterday, so I'm just going to echo his statement. But AMA Travel doing some fantastic stuff. We talked about it a little bit earlier on. Today, if you were to throw some money down on Betway, if you were going Oilers heavy, probably not too many points. Maybe at a Draisaitl goal or a Darnell Nurse point. I think that was paying out pretty decent. Or you took the over. Then you got there. But otherwise, you'd probably have to be betting some money on the Montreal Canadiens. But check out Betway for that, 18 plus, and bet responsibly. Why don't we bring in our producer, Aaron Bordato? Aaron, it wasn't a very good game for the Oilers. You can see it in the chat. There's some negativity going on.
Yeah, it's not a positive one today.
No, certainly not. Frank on Facebook says Bouchard's not going to win you a cup, nor is Broberg. Trade both.
Yes, because trading young defensemen in their early 20s has worked out so well for the Edmonton Oilers in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. We traded away Petrie. He went to Montreal, played pretty well, helped get them to a cup final. I know it didn't go their way, but I thought he played a pretty good role there. What have you guys made of Philip Broberg over the last couple weeks here? Because, I think the consensus is starting to trend in the right direction.
Yeah, I thought he's looked good. I think he's playing simple hockey right now and doing what the coaches are asking of him. Yes, he's playing against some soft competition. That's okay. That's not a bad thing. Somebody has to play against the third and fourth lines. And if we have a defenseman like Philip Broberg who can go out there and do it very effectively every night, that's a good thing, right? I think he plays a simple game, and I think that's kind of the best that you can ask for him right now. This is his rookie season in the NHL. He's still cutting his teeth, trying to find his way. But I think he has looked good as of late for sure.
Yeah, man, I think he's looked great. And the fact that you kind of said there, it's like sometimes you don't notice him. For a young D-man on the Oilers playing, considerable minutes. He's playing, average minutes. I take that with a smile on my face. And I love watching him out there. His plus minus, I believe, right, is just something ridiculous, which, I mean, that can be a skewed stat, but he's doing good things out there. He's never really the butt of the joke in the play, it seems like, and I'm very excited to see what he continues to develop into in the coming years.
Patience. That's what I stress. Relax. Well, it's one game. Let's see how it plays out a little bit further. Jesse on Facebook, where was Costin? Costin had the upper body injury yesterday, left the games, and Jay Woodcroft doesn't give us much, so he was not available to play. Some strangers says Broberg's playing well. Yeah, I mean, I thought his game has been getting better gradually, the way it should. He's not going to hit the ice and be Cale Makar. If you guys can do what Cale Makar does in such an immediate impact, give it some time. We'll see what happens. Guys, the Oilers off until Wednesday. We know they're going to hang out in Montreal, probably have a few beers, watch the Super Bowl today. So we'll start with you, Zach. What's your plans for the Super Bowl?
You know what? I'm going to just keep it simple. I'm hanging out at home here. I've got a bag of chips and some artichoke and asagio dip. Might pour myself a little drink or two. Just going to keep it simple, enjoy the game. It's going to be a great one. What about you guys?
Well, hold on. Okay, you're a Bears fan.
Yes.
Are they trading down, and how far do you think they trade down?
Yes, they are. I think they have.
They
to
better trade down.
Full stop. It depends on the package, I suppose, because I think there's some great defensive players that are in the top end of this draft. You look at some of the defensive linemen, how impactful they can really be. But at the end of the day, this is a Chicago Bears team that has so many bloody holes to fill all over the roster. I think you can get an absolute haul for the first overall pick this year. Guys like CJ Stroud, Bryce Young are right up there in the mix, for that top draft spot. I think there's going to be some desperate teams. Like, I think of Vegas at number 7. They're not going to get Aaron Rodgers. They're not getting Tom Brady. I think about Carolina at 9. I think those are kind of the ideal trade partners for something to shake out here. But yeah, no, I'm pretty excited about it if you couldn't tell. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and what the Bears can do here.
All right, Aaron, you told me your Super Bowl plans. They actually sound amazing. You've got a good friend.
Yeah, I got a good buddy, and he's got one of those. He got a nice new smoker. So today he is making Philly cheesesteaks, and he's been smoking all day some Kansas City rubbed brisket. That's been working on, and I'm gonna right when we finish this up, maybe clean myself up, get a shower, get a Caesar in me, and then head on over there. I'm still fighting last night right now, so I got to get back into it.
Yeah. I mean,
hair of the dog, right? Get a Caesar going, get the blood flowing again. You got this, buddy. I believe in you.
Yeah,
no doubt in my mind that you're going to get back on track. One more here. Let's get to Frank. Not in a great mood on Facebook. I do not see any other top-seeded team lose to so many bottom-seeded like the Oilers. Embarrassing. Oilers have the easiest schedule compared to the others in our division, and making it harder than it should be. While good teams lose to bad teams quite often, the Oilers are not a top-seeded team. They are third in their division right now, so it's not like they are a juggernaut. They're a good team, but I don't think they're a juggernaut. Those things are going to happen. They're not always going to be perfect. But I get it. Every once in a while, these things happen, and there should be some frustrated people out there. Darwin says, lazy Leon needs to be sat when his effort is garbage. Not winning anything with that kind of back-checking and poor puck management. I saw it on the YouTube chat as well. What did you guys think if at one point Leon Draisaitl rode the pine for a little bit?
I mean, I don't think that's ever going to help you win, putting Leon Draisaitl on the bench. But sometimes when we know it from Leon, watching him for years, sometimes his body language just doesn't look right. It just doesn't look good. So maybe something like that. But I'm a firm believer that Leon on the ice, you're probably better off with him out there than on the bench. So
yeah, it's the same thing like that we've talked about with Darnell Nurse. Like, they're not sitting him. He's second in the league in scoring. Like, does he have some nights or some days where he looks, a little off or a little lazy or whatever you want to call it? Like, sure, but come on. Like, he's not sitting. It's just some interesting news breaking right now.
Yeah,
Nick Kiprios saying it sounds like Jacob Chychrun could be heading to the LA Kings. A deal centered around Brant Clark, top defensive prospect taken a couple of years ago. Greg Wyshynski saying that if the echo chamber is correct and Chychrun is likely headed to the Kings, it sounds like it could be 2 first-round picks and a prospect. So if it's 2 first-round picks and Brandt Clark, that is a monumental haul for the Arizona Coyotes. We'll see what happens. Not really entirely sure how reliable Kyprios is as a sort of insider, but some interesting stuff nonetheless.
Well,
So the
really
eighth overall pick in last year's draft.
He said that. I mean, if that's the return, that makes me feel very good that we didn't get in on that. That's too much for me. That's too much.
Well, the comparable would be Philip Broberg, right, and 2 first-round picks. In my eyes, I think it's reasonable for Chychrun. I'm really, really high on him as a player. I think personally at this time, if there's a shot to go get Erik Karlsson, though, and you can get him on a deal around $6 million. Like I was kind of playing around with the numbers a little bit. Like if the Oilers can get San Jose to retain 20%, that's going to help keep the cost down, right? Like if they're not going to retain anything more than that, are you able to find another team like Arizona or Columbus or somebody trying to get to the floor to take another 50%? Because if they would, then that takes Karlsson's cap hit to $4.6 million, which is the same as Jacob Chychrun's. I'd much rather have Erik Karlsson at that than Jacob Chychrun right now, right? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. It's pretty wild to say the least that we're even talking about it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and that kind of, I don't want to say forces the hand of Ken Holland, but okay, a divisional opponent going all in to get a guy. Maybe you want to do the same and you to try to find some creativity to make it work. Yaremchuk and I were talking about it yesterday on the show, and we both kind of thought there's a lot of obstacles to make that happen. But if it were to happen, like that's video game stuff, to have the potential of Erik Karlsson like finding McDavid for outlet passes, I'd enjoy watching that. We'd all love it. Yeah.
Well, hey, you know what? Connor and Leon and Karlsson took shifts together in the All-Star game. Like we got a taste of it. Like you got to imagine Connor and Leon are in his year there, right? Like, so I don't know. I think it'd be unbelievable to see happen, to say the least.
Craig Button was on the Gregor show on Friday and had a very passionate rant about, this is the time. Don't worry about first-round picks. Go win now. Help McDavid and Draisaitl. Maybe this could be the time. We shall see. Let us know very quickly on the chats. Who do you want to see? Are you pissed if Karlsson is not going to be an Oiler? Do you want to see him here? Are you mad that Chychrun's going to LA? And we'll run through those very quickly. Also, because we only asked, what you're doing. Zach, who's winning the Super Bowl today?
I'm going with the Eagles. I think they're both great teams. Mahomes is a magician. But I look at the Philadelphia Eagles roster, and I just see a much more complete team. I think they're stronger defensively, and we always hear this saying, defense wins championships, right? I think the Eagles have the strongest defense in the entire NFL, and I think it's enough to hopefully suppress Mahomes and that Chiefs offense enough to allow Philly and their dogs to kind of do the work that they need to do.
Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, I've been kind of going back and forth all week. I still haven't bet yet. I haven't put any money down. I'm going to wait till the last minute. But it's the age-old thing. It's you don't make money betting against Patrick Mahomes. Like if 20 years ago somebody told me that about Tom Brady and I would have just followed through, think of how many units I would be up right now. So there's that. But Zach makes the point with the defense wins championships. Like Mahomes was in the Soupy a couple of years ago against the Bucs and got absolutely ragdolled by a really good defense, a subpar offensive line. Now, I think their line's better this year, but with that bum ankle and the Eagles has some dogs on that D-line over there, it could be the perfect storm for Patrick Mahomes, but I think I'm leaning towards the Chiefs just because I don't think you make money betting against that guy.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that Super Bowl against the Bucs. That was like the reason this Chiefs offensive line was rebuilt, right? Because they got after him so well.
Now, the real question is, guys, is where are you laying your money on first Rihanna song I'm going to just jump in first. I think it's got to be Umbrella. I think that's the one you have to go with here. What are you guys thinking?
See, I think Umbrella's got to be like in the middle when it kind of hits a little low, boom, go down and pick it back up. So that was where I thought. I honestly don't know. I mean, I don't know too many Rihanna songs. She's Run This Town, right? Maybe Run This Town.
Oh, that would be a good one.
That
That
would
would
be
actually be a really good one. Connor, what about you? You got any picks?
Well, I think the best part for you, Aaron, is that she's gonna perform, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you're gonna, I wrote them down. Run This Town was one I like, but I think Diamonds as well. I think she might start off a little bit slow, maybe go a cappella, and then ramp it up a little bit.
Love it.
We'll see, though. It's going to be a fun one today. Yeah, I mean, I really don't. I think you both made good points for each side, like the Eagles, but Mahomes. The Eagles haven't played a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes this year. They've played some okay. But they haven't played an MVP level or even a top 3 quarterback, in my opinion. So it'll be awesome to see. Okay, guys, well, before we wrap up here, prediction for Wednesday when the Oilers take on the Red Wings. Start with you, Zach.
I'm going to go with a 4-0 victory, first shutout of the season.
Nice. Aaron, what do you think?
I like that optimism. Great. Now I'm going to bet shutout on Wednesday. Thanks, Zach. we'll go with 4-2. And after the game this past week, I am very interested to see where the physicality gets going because it was starting to get a little heated in the last game there for two teams who do not play each other very often. So I'll go 4-2. Maybe a fight.
I love it. That would be great. I got 4-1. I think Campbell gets back out there, strong performance. Maybe we get an empty netter. That'd be cool too. But guys, a lot of fun today. I was in a grumpy mood, as you probably saw with the good, the bad, the oily. It was pretty negative, but we talked it out. I'm feeling optimistic. It was just one game. And hopefully the boys will bounce back on Wednesday. Big thank you to Cornerstone Insurance. Check them out, cornerstoneins.ca/nation. Also AMA Travel and Betway. When Aaron makes his pick, he'll use Betway, and maybe he'll let us know what his pick is on Twitter for the Super Bowl today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, thank you for doing this, and we'll be back Wednesday after the Oilers Red Wings. It's a 7:30 start, so it will be after dark once again. I'm Connor Halley. He's Zach Laing, Aaron Bordado. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.
See you.